Welcome to the Still Caring podcast, presented by Stillwater Medical.
Here, community is at the heart of healthcare.
Through honest conversations and shared experiences,
we explore what it means to care for our health
and each other.
Because better health takes a village, and you're part of ours.
Today's conversation is with someone a lot of people in Stillwater already know and respect. Steve Irby, founder of Kicker. Good morning, Steve. Appreciate you being here.
Good morning, Joe. Glad to be here this morning.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing your health journey. Your story isn't just about business. It's about family, genetics, and a health journey that started long before you knew it would affect you.
Right.
Your grandfather passed away from polycystic kidney disease. Your mother passed away from the same disease. And because it's genetic, you knew there was a 50-50 chance that it would be part of your story too. So what followed was years of waiting, uncertainty, and eventually a kidney transplant that changed everything.
Yeah.
So this is a conversation, or I should say this conversation isn't about a hospital or a procedure. It's about understanding risk, paying attention to your health,
Sure.
and what it looks like to walk through something like this over time.
Right.
I'm Joe Aiken, and I'm glad you're part of this conversation. So for full transparency, I was fortunate enough to start my career working for you, and it was 12 great years that I will absolutely never forget. It was fantastic. So thank you for that. But before we get into the medical side of things, when people in Stillwater hear the name Steve Irby, what do you hope they think of?
That's a good question, Joe. I really have never pondered that question. As I thought about it a little bit, though, I thought maybe I like Aretha Franklin. Just like a little respect, you know? That's all. And I think that's something that you just have to earn every day. It's not something that because of your position or who I am or what I've done, I don't want respect for that. I just want I would like respect for the way I treat people and act on a day-by-day basis. I think to me, that's nice. Yeah.
I would say with a level of confidence, you definitely have that. Let's go ahead and get medical. And I want to make sure people understand what we're talking about. So polycystic kidney disease, or PKD, I'm going to say it that way because it's easier for me.
Right.
It's a genetic condition where fluid-filled cysts grow inside the kidneys. And over time, those cysts can get large enough that the kidneys lose their ability to function, which can lead to kidney failure. And there's currently no cure for PKD, but thankfully it's treatable, as everyone is soon going to hear. So, Steve, your grandfather passed away of PKD. Then tragically, your mother passed away of the same disease in 1971. And at the time of your mother's passing, how much did you understand about what was happening?
Probably not a whole lot. I knew that she had that, but frankly, growing up, I didn't know that. I didn't know too much about my granddad. I had never met him. But as time went on, I think my mother probably felt that she didn't have to explain everything to me right away. But as her disease began to progress, when I was in college, we talked about it. And I think that I knew that there wasn't a cure for it, but I always felt like that maybe by the time that my condition worsened, that there would be more medical knowledge to deal with it. And so she was kind of a pioneer in that area.
So at what point, or approximately what age, did you actually realize and accept this could be something that you had inherited?
Well, actually, they started testing me because they knew that there's a possibility of that. I think when I was in college, probably 19 or 20, they would inject a dye and then do an x-ray. And they determined that I had some of that. Actually, it wasn't terribly concerning to me because I knew that it developed very slowly, but I knew that I had it. And so I would say it wasn't a traumatic experience. It was more like an acceptance of this is kind of the way things are.
So if I heard you right, you never really had any symptoms, but you decided
Right.
to get tested anyway. So walk us through that decision process for you, because many of us have never been there.
Well, I think the decision to get tested was primarily by my doctors because they knew that my mom had it. And so they wanted to test the kids to see if they have it and what kind of preventative measures that you can take as you grow to lessen the effects of it. And so it wasn't really my idea. It was just something they said, you need to do this and get tested. And so it wasn't really my initiative to do that.
So in that moment, though, when you heard the results, because I was trying to put myself in
Yeah.
your position and what my mind, where it would go.
Yeah.
In those moments, what ran through your mind?
I hope that it doesn't develop very fast. I guess that was the main thing. My mother and I had talked about this, and she said, by the time you have issues with this, there will probably be much better treatments for it and even kidney transplants. She actually had a kidney transplant. Her and another lady had the first ones in Oklahoma. She was kind of a pioneer in that and wanted to do that rather than be on dialysis, which is in those days you had to drive to Oklahoma City 3 times a week and spend the day down there. And so she liked to do things and be active. And I think that was a motivation, and also just to maybe kind of pave the way if her kids had to deal with this too.
So knowing that you had the same potentially fatal disease, but it sounds like there's a very upbeat thought process going through you and your family. Did you ever have to deal with or manage any sort of emotional or mental health issues from it, like depression or anything like that?
I think my main mental health issues were, what the heck am I going to do when I get out of college? And I kind
So very normal.
it kind of all happened at once, and I found out about this and that. So
Right.
yeah, but it wasn't so much really based upon the physical issue. It was more just, what am I going to do with my life? And I've got this condition that's going to develop. But I just didn't know exactly what the heck I was doing. But it wasn't just because of the condition. It was more just uncertainty about my future, I think. Really my job, I think.
Yeah. So a few years down the road, life is progressing and you're in it. I
Yeah.
mean, you have it, it's starting to take a hold. What did you do? Just walk us through that story, through that journey.
Well, I would get tested every year, and that was something that they did. And the other thing is that they want to watch your blood pressure really closely, because your blood pressure, too high of blood pressure, can damage, obviously, more than just the kidneys, but internal organs, because it's pushing things through too hard. And for someone with polycystic kidney disease, the cysts are starting to squeeze the kidneys. And if you're trying to push higher blood pressure through there, it can actually exacerbate the condition and make it worse, because you're putting even more pressure that way. So the main thing was to watch my blood pressure, which I think in my 40s, I started on a blood pressure medication, not because it was excessively high, but just to keep it in the normal range without being elevated at all. And so that was the main thing that really I was encouraged to do, and lead a healthy lifestyle.
You ended up going to Mayo for treatment. I think that is a fantastic story that I think everyone would like to hear. So once you and your physician determined that you were going to need to get a
Yeah.
kidney transplant, could you just take us all on that journey with you?
Well, actually, going to Mayo was after the kidney transplant, because they discovered that, and which we knew, that I had a polycystic condition in my liver too, because it can be in your kidney, your liver. Sometimes they even check your brain. I mean, it can show up there. I don't think they checked my brain. I guess they thought it was bad enough. But that is something. So it's kind of weird, but it can show up. But generally, it's going to show up in the kidneys. So that was a kind of another story. But what happened was that I was regularly monitored, and I was connected from my doctor here at Stillwell Medical Center at the physician's clinic to a nephrologist in Oklahoma City that I began seeing 25 years ago, just on a regular basis, and checking all my blood work. And so he was at the Nazi-Zudi Transplant Institute at Integris in Oklahoma City. And so he was the one that was monitoring me as to when I might need a kidney transplant. I actually didn't have the transplant until I was 65 years old. So I made it a long way, frankly, without any serious side effects. Even though I had those cysts, I was still functional. And what they do is that they measure your kidney production by the measure of creatinine primarily. And so they test that. And when it gets to a certain point, which means you have 20% function, then you can be put on a kidney transplant list.
20%.
20% to get a cadaver kidney. Now, if you're going to have a live donor kidney, and I had several people try to donate me a kidney, and for various reasons, that didn't work out. Interestingly enough, my wife was first going to donate a kidney to me, and in the period of testing, they discovered she had a tumor on one of her kidneys that they thought was cancerous. They removed the kidney. It wasn't cancerous yet, but it was the kind that can turn. So that was kind of a blessing in disguise, really, that they discovered that with her. Then I had a couple of other people that didn't qualify for different reasons. But being on the list doesn't mean you get one right away. It took me 3.5 years. So I was on the list, just living my life, even at 20%, feeling pretty good, going to the gym and working full time and all these things. When I got down to 8% was when I got the kidney transplant. And amazingly enough, I still felt pretty good at 8%. It's kind of crazy, but still functional, still doing everything. So I've been waiting and then trying, as you know, traveling internationally. I kind of stopped traveling internationally maybe a couple of years before that. If you get the call for a transplant, you have to be there in a short period of time. I think it's 8 hours or something like that. And so I didn't want to be like too far away. So 3.5 years later, after being on this, and I ended up being on dialysis for only 9 months, the last 9 months. And I did that at home. It was peritoneal, which is you do it yourself. And they teach you how to do that. And I was still able to fully function with that. I just did it at night. So I got the call on a Saturday morning, and they said, "We have a kidney for you." And I had a friend that was going to donate me a kidney that had almost passed all the tests, but it wasn't quite finished. So I had to choose, am I going to wait on this person, or am I going to take the one that they have for me? And this is like 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday morning. And you got to decide right then, because you got to drive down to Oklahoma City and get the transplant. So I didn't know what to do. So I just prayed, asked God to show me which way to go here, because I've got two options. And I thought, well, I'll call my kidney doctor, my long-term kidney doctor, and just say, what would you do? So I called him up, and he said, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And I go, got my answer. Okay, I'm going to Oklahoma City. And so that was how that worked. And Becky and I drove to Oklahoma City, and I think by noon I had the transplant. It's just like boom, boom, boom. I was in the hospital for 3.5 days and went home.
One of the things when you and I were talking about this that I thought was absolutely fascinating. I mean, the whole story is, but I was wondering about the actual transplant.
Yeah.
And you told me something that I had no idea about. So I think you know what I'm talking about. Would you tell us that?
Well, yeah, when you get a transplant these days, they don't remove your other kidneys unless they're causing problems, infection, different things. I had no problems with mine. They just didn't really work very well. And so they don't take those out because they're way down there. And that's a big operation to take those out. When my mother had the transplant in 1970, they took them out and they put the transplanted kidney in that same location. But they've learned since then that's not necessary. And so what they do is they put the transplanted kidney basically just in the side of your abdomen. And it's a fairly simple operation, is what I understand, much simpler than just taking out a kidney. And the kidney's not very big, and it kind of eventually just sort of fits in. It kind of wiggles its way in. And I think they connect up They connect up the artery and the vein and the ureter to your bladder. That's it. It's a fairly simple operation. And then they sew you back up and you have to recover from that. Mine took a little bit, they said it, to wake up. When you have a transplant and it's taken out of somebody that passed away just right then, really, pretty much recently, it can take a while for it to get going. So I was out in about 3.5 days, but it took towards the end of the week before it really started kicking in really well. But it did. So that was probably of the whole scenario, those days were the most worrisome. Is this going to work or is it not going to work? And at that point in time, I'm thinking, I don't know if I can do this again. If you just had a surgery, I mean, I could do it again, but I really don't want to do that again. But thank God it worked and kicked off, and I got a good match. So I'm almost 13 years in with it now, and I haven't had any rejection episodes. A lot of people have rejection episodes. Doesn't mean you lose it. They have to up your immunosuppressants and bring it back down again so they can control that. But I never had that. And so they think it'll last for the duration as far as they know. I mean, nobody really knows, but it's just chugging along like normal. And I have a test about every 6 months.
So all of this somehow led to you going to the Mayo Clinic. And I think anybody listening would love to hear how that came about because when you told
Yeah,
me, I was completely surprised. I had no idea.
yeah.
So walk us through that if you would.
Well, 12 years later, so I started having some issues with some fluid accumulation. They were trying to figure that out. Is it the kidney? Is it the heart? They tested all that. Nope, it's the liver. And I have cysts on my liver, but generally, and a lot of people with polycystic kidney disease have cysts on their liver, but it doesn't affect it like it does the kidneys. So you can have cysts on your liver and it still works okay. And mine was working okay, but the cysts were kind of squeezing the liver and the vessels, and especially the big return vein that comes up back to the heart and through the liver and delivers that blood back, was getting squeezed. My doctor, eventually we came to the conclusion, go to the Mayo Clinic and see if they can diagnose why you're kind of accumulating fluid, because they're getting restricted trying to go back. And so it kind of accumulates. So amazingly enough, it's easy to get into the Mayo Clinic. You don't even have to have a doctor's recommendation. You just get on their website, tell them your problem. They'll call you, they'll interview you. And I was totally surprised. And it's covered with your regular health insurance. And so it all worked so smoothly and ended up going to Rochester in Minnesota up there. And they do a lot of tests on you. In fact, they did them all even the same day. I mean, they did the MRI, the blood test, the doctor consultation, all before noon. I was done. And then you wait for their team of doctors, because it's not just one doctor. And the team of doctors, they're primarily a diagnostic hospital, and they diagnose what's going on. And so they say you should probably stay about 5 days. It's a beautiful place. We had a great time up there, kind of made a vacation out of it. But you're waiting for them to get back to you. And so they got back on Friday. Went up on Tuesday, and they went back in and met with the doctors. We're sorry. We don't think there's anything that we can do for you. I kind of suspected that and was kind of ready to accept that, but I thought, let's give it a try. So we go back, and then on Tuesday morning, I get a call. Well, one doctor hadn't reported back, and he thought he could do something. So we go back to Rochester. It was an interventional radiologist who they put stents in your veins and arteries, and they worked through the vascular system. Anyway, he ended up putting a stent in my inferior vena cava, the IVC, the big one that comes up, and opened that up because they measured the pressure, and the pressure going in was high and coming out was low. They're supposed to be equal. And I was awake through the whole process. And they were measuring. They could measure the pressure inside. They said, well, it still needs more. And they put another stent in. They kind of lined a couple of them up and opened it up. And they go, yeah, now the pressure's equal on the bottom going in and on the top coming out. And you're just listening to all this while they're doing it, halfway sedated, but really not. I knew what was going on. They going through your vein in your neck. And that was done. And you wait around a couple hours and get dressed and leave, and you're done. And that was it. So, but that helped a lot and made a big difference. And then they changed my medication a little bit. And so we're able to more or less control that. But yeah, it's an amazing place. It's like a nice hotel. I mean, the customer service is unbelievable. I mean, it's a beautiful place and totally all about the patient. Their total focus is on the patient, nothing else. And you really feel that when you go there. And great experience. I'd love to go back just for fun. But we enjoyed it. But yeah, great people and great hospital. Yeah. So
Yeah. So your story, I mean, your health journey is incredible.
yeah,
So you've gone through this, you're still living it. Has all of this changed anything about your perspective on life?
not really, actually. It's just something I've kind of accepted as the way things are. I haven't had to do a whole lot of processing with it. I'm just like dealing with it's just like life. You got a problem that comes up, you deal with it. What do you do next? And to me, I kind of see it that way. So I haven't had any massive revelations other than just make the most with what you've got. And I think that's the message is don't complain that everything isn't just perfect in your life and your body the way you'd like it to be, but don't let that hold you back from enjoying life and do the things that you want to do. So yeah, no, it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm living on borrowed time or I've only got so many years left or
Right.
you think about that because you're getting older, to a certain degree, you need
Yeah.
to make some planning for your estate and stuff like that. But as far as, no, not too much different. And that may just be because of the way I was raised, just kind of deal with it and just move on. But I realize some things are much more serious than that. And they're pervasive and all encompassing. I've been fortunate to kind of make it through some of those things, but I know it's not gonna last forever. But this is just my experience, I'll say. I don't know that that's gonna be everybody's experience. I know some diseases are just worse, much worse. I'm fortunate that this is all I've got, I think, really.
Yeah. Well, Steve, thank you so much for being so open about your personal journey.
Yeah,
I mean, telling our health stories will help other people in and around our community. And hopefully, it gets people talking and thinking about their own health.
yeah,
We always end with what we call a challenge to care, and we ask our guests to challenge all of us to take one step to take better care of ourselves or someone around us. So, if someone's listening right now and they've heard your story, what's one thing you would challenge them to do differently when it comes to their health or the health of someone they love?
I'm sure this has been beat into everybody's head, but regular doctor checkups, at least once a year, just see what's going on. And of course, they're going to test your blood pressure, but you can test your blood pressure at home. I mean, I've got a blood pressure monitor, or you can have it tested any place. But so many different diseases are made worse by high blood pressure. And so I would say regular doctor's visits and know what your blood pressure is. Don't ignore it. Don't think it's because you can't feel it. Don't think that it's not there. Another thing that I have not experienced myself, but is I've had a colonoscopy, but nobody likes that, but you don't want colon cancer. And that's very preventable with the colonoscopy. And I have friends that have gotten colon cancer and didn't have a colonoscopy just because they didn't want to and could have prevented it. That's not the case for everyone, but don't ignore your health. Sometimes you think it's just going to go away. The other thing is that sometimes some people don't really trust doctors, and they say, well, I'm not going to go to a doctor. I don't really trust them. And you have to remember doctors are not perfect, but they're there to help you. And so my philosophy has been, maybe you want to change doctors, maybe you want to find one that you can relate to better. But when you settle on that, then work with them and do what they say and listen to them
Yeah,
and
I agree.
let them.
So that's the challenge to care. It's, take one step, start one conversation, pay attention to something you've been putting off,
Yeah.
because stories like yours, they don't start the day you get the call. They start
No.
years earlier.
Yeah.
And the more we talk about it, the more we take care of each other.
Yeah.
So thank you, Steve, for being part of this. And thank you to our listeners for being part of our conversation. We appreciate it.
Glad to be here, Joe. Thank you. Good to see you again.